All right, I've got top of the hour, everybody. Good morning to everybody in the States and anyone joining us internationally. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on your time zone around the world. And a quick shout out to some names I see that have joined us regularly. Todd Russell in the great state of Alaska. And I see Chief Grimes out in North Carolina and Chief Sutton. And Chief Stockley up just a couple hours north of me up in the Buckeye area in West Valley of Phoenix. So thank you all for joining today. We've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So a little different plan for today. I'm going to run through the presentation. Go ahead and type your questions, and then what we'll do, and respecting everybody's time, I'll try and get through this in about 45 minutes. And then we'll take the last 15 minutes or so for questions. But if you need to peel off to get on with your day after 45 minutes or so, I will let you do that after we cover the core of the presentation. And then we'll address questions throughout the last part of the session today, only because we've got a lot to cover and I've got a pretty good feeling we're going to need a part 2 and maybe even a part 3 to this as I was preparing it. So welcome. Today is week 5 of our summer boot camp. Today is ISO success, and we're going to just tackle a few elements of the ISO and the PPC and how you can make life easier for yourself and for the ISO auditor using emergency reporting. So welcome, everybody. Here's the run through. Quick introduction. I'll give you the objective, and I'm going to go fast through the emergency reporting background. For those of you that have joined us, many of you, if not most of you, are existing customers, but we also open this up to potential customers that are interested in joining the emergency reporting family. So I would do a super fast background today of our company, and I think you'll see that if you're interested in coming on board to emergency reporting, that some of the things that we can do, especially for ISO, will help inform you and make a great decision for any future RMS you might choose. We'll hit the system features, again, super fast, and then why we're here, ISO success, the boot camp, push-ups for our brain today. That's me. I'm retired Battalion Chief out of Southern Arizona. I live in Tucson and retired as a Battalion Chief, of course, from the Green Valley Fire District. And I've been with emergency reporting using it since 2004 and a trainer since 2011, and just last year promoted to Business Development Analyst. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. How can I better document my department's performance so that my ISO PPC score will improve? Okay, and so as I went through the PPC and then matching it to elements in our system, we're clearly going to do some follow-up sessions on this, but I want to hit some core elements today that will help you enhance your current ER account, or if you're thinking of coming on board to ER, how our system can help you with an ISO audit. Emergency reporting, almost 100 employees, serving 480,000 personnel within our system, over 160,000 authorized unique users, and we're pushing through 6,700 departments worldwide. Some great enterprise contracts with the Marine Corps, the Army, and I'm very pleased to announce that we will begin serving Boeing around the United States. Every one of their sites will be using emergency reporting for their fire and emergency services. So a lot of exciting times and growth. Like I said, I want to fly through this part, everybody, so we can get to the core of what you are all here for today. As those of you that use us, you know that we have 16 system modules, over 600 system reports, analytics, and we're excited to be looking in early 2020 business intelligence tools that many of you have been asking for. And we will certainly visit that as things move forward in one of our boot camp series. So just to give you a heads up, we're going to be doing boot camp here through the summer. We call it our summer boot camp. And then we're going to continue the type of content we're doing and take it into the fall and into 2020, but we're going to call it 20 for 2020. We're going to have 20 weeks scattered throughout September through probably February-ish of next year on different topics in the system, and to help you just do a better job with your RMS and get the most out of emergency reporting. So look for that and announcements coming here in the weeks ahead. All right, so I need to give special thanks here to a good friend of mine in Midwest City, Oklahoma. It's David Richardson. He's an administrative major, but he's taught me a lot about ISO. In fact, he was an ISO rep for 7 years, and he has been able to either receive initially and then maintain ISO Class 1 for his department 3 times. And so I want to direct you to the handouts in your go-to meeting, or go-to webinar, excuse me, control panel. There are 3 handouts there. One of them is an overview of emergency reporting for those of you new to us. Then the next 2 is the white paper on ISO that David authored and helped us write. And the next one is what we'll talk about later in the presentation about setting up your training module, because that's a core element for ISO. So take a look at those, and not now though, pay attention to me for the next 45 minutes, but go ahead and download those to your computer for future reference. Okay, so ISO, the fire suppression rating schedule gives you a property protection class. And we all know that we hear a lot, and you see it on departments apparatus. Class 1 is the best. Class 10 is no recognized fire protection. And so that's kind of the breakdown. I'm certain many of you are familiar with it, especially if your state's an ISO state, but I just wanted to do a quick recap. 1 is the best, 10 is none, or no recognized fire protection, and then you can also have a split class, which some of you may have. So with that, before we continue on, I've got a couple polls that I like to do to engage everybody here. The first poll is, what is your current ISO rating? So take a look up at your screen, those of you that are multitasking, and let's give a vote. Are you class 1, 2 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 10, or I have no idea? Okay, almost everybody's voted. If you haven't, take a look up at your screen. 5, 4, 3, 2, last chance. Okay, let's take a look what we got. Nice. Okay, so 3/4 of you are 2 to 4. Wow, very nice. We got some 5 to 8, one probably a 9 or a 10, and then some don't know, and that's okay. You will know eventually, and this will help you get there and certainly improve it. So most impressive. So maybe we can help those of you that are at 2s get to 1s. All right, 2 more quick polls, everybody. I know those of you that have been with me before know this. I like to get some information about our participants today. This one, what type of department are you representing today? Career, volunteer, combo, federal DoD, or industrial? All right, that's fast. Everybody voted fast there. A couple more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last chance. Okay, let's see what we got today. All right, an even split career and combo, some volunteers, and then some of our DoD customers or federal customers or those interested in emergency reporting. All right, last poll, and then we'll press on. Okay, so how many of you are interested in joining the ER family, or you're a current member of the ER family, your current customer? Ooh, that's fast. Almost everybody's voted already. Nice job. 5, 4, 3, 2, last chance. All right. And like this is consistent. We usually get 5 to 10% that are interested, and then the rest are current customers. Hey guys, thanks a lot for participating in that, and I will not interrupt you with any more polls during the session today. All right, so looking at what you guys, whoops, gotta hide the poll. Looking at what you had mentioned as far as your class, let's take a look nationwide. So this is from an article from Fire Rescue Magazine. You can see the URL down at the bottom, but I found this interesting, and it kind of goes along what we talked about today and what you guys responded, what you had submitted in the poll. So we got 305 as of 2017 that are class 1s, and then a nice bell curve there with 2 through 4, a peak at 5, and a peak at 9. So you can kind of see the company that you are in around the country. Okay, so here's the breakout for ISO, and this, because of our time, this will not be a deep dive into everything ISO. I've selected some certain elements that I think are pretty relevant, and then will help you tune up your emergency reporting account to make it easier to submit data when the auditors come to visit. And if I understand correctly, talking with David, it used to be a long, even a multi-day visit from ISO auditors, but now they're having you compile everything, submit some of it electronically, and they're on site for a very short amount of time compared to what they used to be. And so all of our time is kind of valuable now, and so they found ways to make it a little bit more efficient. But the more prepared you are by putting good data in, the easier it is to get good data out. And so the focus today is going to be on this 50%. That's the fire department. And we're also going to talk about community risk reduction, which is a 5.5% bonus points that can help offset any deficiencies in any of these other three elements. Okay, so this is from that document that's in your handouts. And here's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to talk about equipment on engines. Okay, that's section 512 of ISO. And one of the reports that help you with this is report 963. We're also going to look at deployment analysis, company personnel, and training hours. And like I said, we've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to kind of fly through it. There'll be a recording of this, and then any questions you have, we'll hit at the end. Okay, so first one, and I'm going to do the deck here, and then we're going to jump into the system, but I want to give you an overview. And don't freak out with the math. I know I always liked math. I was good at it in school, but again, imagine trying to do pump calculations, during a fire. I'm not good at math under duress. So, but let's just walk through this because I want to show you how you're going to configure or should be configuring your emergency reporting equipment module for your equipment. Now, this is just one element, 512.b hose carried. Okay, hose carried is supply line carried plus attack line carried divided by 1,200 feet. All right, so that's kind of your 100%, 1,200 feet. And if you have more, obviously this will be greater than one. If it's less, it'll be an element, a sub-element of one. That's not what I meant to say. It'll be less than one. Goodness. Okay. And so we're going to talk about just this one element, but it'll carry over to other elements within the system. Organizing your hose, and I'm using hose as an example, but organizing all of your equipment is key here. Categories and subcategories. This is from Orange County. So they have and they're just building their account. They don't even have all their hose in here yet, and they already have 19,000 pieces of equipment within their account. So this is one way. This is not the only way. I've seen where you've got hose, you've got the description of the hose in a subcategory, and then one recommendation I'm going to give to you is certainly you can say 100-foot sections here, but there is a field within the equipment data set called size. Well, if you already know the diameter is 1 3/4 inches, you could put the length and the size, and then when you run a report, you can add it all up really quickly and get your sections carried or your supply line and attack line carried without having to do a whole lot of work. So I'll show you that, and that helps this particular element of ISO. Okay, so here's an example. My buddy Darren Keith out at Rock Island Arsenal. So they've kind of done it, but what I wanted to show you that in this report, again, David Richardson from Midwest City references this, and I think it's a great report. ISO comes, you can run this report 963, category is hose, all subcategories, or you can certainly break down each report for each section, each length of hose. No, each diameter of hose. Excuse me, getting ahead of myself here. And they've put, you can see different people have entered it because they've got the diameter here, and then they've got the length here. My recommendation is in the size field to put the length. Why? Because you can take this out into Excel and do a sum of this, and that's your total sections of hose for, say, attack line or supply line, and then you run it for those various subcategories. And so you can deliver this to ISO within a couple clicks, as long as the data going in is good, okay? And I know there's gonna be questions, everybody, and I will certainly address them at the end. I prefer doing them on the fly, but knowing what we have to cover, if I don't, we won't get through everything. Okay, next up, equipment on existing engine companies, and I'm gonna book through this because I wanna go into the system here momentarily. But the pumper service test program, maximum points, if you do pump tests every year on your apparatus. Our system tracks this beautifully. Okay, here's an example of report 1699. I ran it for just NFPA annual test for all apparatus, and then you can see those different tests. And there's one other section I want to show you where this also is captured. Equipment on existing engine companies, so the hose service, your annual hose test program, boom, 50 points credit, maximum credit, 1515. Hose category, maintenance types. Now again, you can pick any subcategories you want. I just chose all here. NFPA annual test, and you can prove to them that you've done an annual test. Whoops, excuse me. You've done an annual test on all your hose. And if you guys like, I can also, I think I should be able to drop this PowerPoint into the handouts on the fly, so I can put this PowerPoint in the handouts as well. So one other bonus, again for ISO, especially for those last two elements we talked about, you can see at a glance whether or not your apparatus are in compliance, because safety analytics allows you to see, one, has it been checked like it's supposed to, daily, weekly, monthly, and has it had its annual pump test. And so 2 trucks here are good to go. We know not only has it been checked, but if it's had its annual pump test. 6 have either not had their annual pump test, or they haven't been checked, and then 1 is out of service. Equipment, likewise, any piece of equipment, hose, ladders, for example, that have to be annually tested, this gauge lets you see at a glance which pieces of equipment are in compliance for the annual test. All right, deployment analysis. Lot to read here. Bottom line, they have a formula, okay, which is kind of an older way to determine first 2 companies within 1.5 road miles and a ladder service company within 2.5 road miles, or you can use the NFPA 1710 response compliance criteria. And that comes into play there's a couple reports, 1641 and then 1722 is another one that David Richardson mentions, but this shows you for compliance. And so you would put in your times, and ISO cares about the fire calls. So I just picked the 100 series calls, okay, and 47 more. So there's 47 100 series type calls, start and end date, and then this will show you, and for code 3 only, and this shows you compliance for the first 4 arriving units. And it gives you an overall response compliance. This will probably be a beneficial report also to ISO. Also, anybody that has gone through an audit recently and wants to share any tips as far as how the system has helped you with your ISO audit, and those of you that are thinking of coming on board with emergency reporting, some of the challenges that you've encountered, if you put that in as a question, if I don't address it today, it will be for future webinars on ISO. Another one that I learned from David on is this, using your on-duty firefighters at stations, the ODF 570.A. They're looking to see the average staffing on a given day. But one thing that we forget to realize is that volunteer departments can count people that are going to be scheduled or show up for cleaning the station. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to get credit because they clean in the station. They're going to get credit because they were available for traffic during a given time period throughout the year. And this can all be tracked through the daily roster. And then at the end, what you do is any on-duty activity codes in the daily roster, so not leave, not paid day off, not family leave, not sick, but work schedule on, trade on, for example, coverage, whatever codes you may be using in the daily roster, you can run report 1193, add up all the hours that are considered on-duty hours, divide by 8760. Why 8760? That's the number of hours in a year. Training. So this is a list, and it's not even the up-to-date list. I'll show you the up-to-date list. Standards are a critical part in our system that is often overlooked, and I'm going to go into that in more depth once you can see it in action in the system. But using standards helps you better capture training that ISO wants to document without interfering with what you trained or trying to kind of manipulate the hours based on the training codes and things like that. So I'll show you that as well. But the report is 1681, and so one of the things to keep in mind, and all of this will make sense once I show it, is that you picked your year or whatever time frame you're looking for in this report. You can select all personnel, but what's smart is for the other ISO, new driver operator training. Let's go with that. You can select and multi-pick, group them, and name that group new driver operators. Run all of their training against the ISO standard for new driver operator, and you will get a per person report on the number of hours for each new driver operator in one report. That's 1681. Community risk reduction. It's 5.5% of the PPC, their bonus. Okay, so that can help offset any deficiencies elsewhere. Just today, we're going to talk about pub ed programs because it highlights 1032B.1 on fire drills in schools. We have our new events module, I should say our enhanced events module, allows you to capture those fire drills. Okay, I picked fire drill and I'll show you how I built it in my account. These are all of our elementary school drills and the number of children, adults, and seniors that participated. Now, granted, ISO doesn't look for that number, but for your annual reports, for justifying your community risk reduction programs and public ed programs, it's kind of nice to know how many civilians you're connecting with throughout the year. And now we can track that, and we couldn't do this like this before. All right, let's get into the system. And then that was kind of the rundown, but now I'm gonna go revisit each of those within the system. So then you can kind of see how you could configure your account. And I guarantee it, some of you probably have as good or better ways of doing this, so feel free to share it. This is just one possibility of what I'm going to show you today, but you may have some others, so feel free to share those. And if you guys will just give me a second, I am going to do this. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to load it up into the handouts for you so you guys can have it. And then we'll press on. Here, let's hope it saved it where it's supposed to save it. Yes, okay. All right, I'm going to give it a shot. Stand by. And this way you can have it for future reference. Should have done that to begin with. All right, it may be too big. If not, I'll compress it and email it to you guys. Okay, so the first part I talked about was equipment on engines and hose carried. So the key here is how you have configured your maintenance module. Okay. All right, so this has safety analytics. That's fine. If you don't, it's okay. You would just have a category called hose. This is, yeah, I guess this is okay to do it this way. Again, you've got 2.5 hose, 50 foot. All right, you can put that in the description. So let's edit this real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about, this piece of equipment. Categories and subcategories are key. All right, so I like just having a general category called hose, and then your subcategories are going to be based on the diameter of the hose. Okay, and so if I wanted to, add a new subcategory of hose, and again, syntax, it's up to you. So I'm going to add that. There isn't one now. It's going to go into the category. Inspection frequency is annual. I'm going to add it. So I want to show you what's changed now. All right, that I didn't change that piece of equipment at all, okay? But I did I'm going to move it into a newly created subcategory because right now I don't have one. It created it here and you'll see me move it here momentarily. So to answer Chief McGarvey's question out in Pennsylvania, can you put the size of the hose in the type field? You can, and I think that will also appear in the reports that you run. So again, you've got flexibility here, no pun intended, right, hose? You can put the length here, or you can put it here in size. Now, people say, well, size is diameter, but remember, you've got it in the category, or even in your equipment ID, you might have a prefix, that's 2.5 is the diameter, acquired in 2011, section number 2. No right or wrong way, as long as you're gonna make it work, but take advantage of these other fields because of how they come out in a report such as 963. Okay, so I'm gonna put here 100 foot. Again, you can assign ownership, of course, and again, just briefly, apparatus compartment also, so hose bed. Typically hose isn't assigned to people or a station, yes, if it's on a hose rack, but not on a truck. Don't forget the cost and replacement cost because these two numbers, we have reports for that also. Again, a sidetrack from ISO, but you can get kind of some budgeting going, a preliminary budget based on when you're gonna replace it and how much it's gonna cost. Now I'm gonna save it, watch what happens. It is now moved into the 2.5 inch hose subcategory. Report number 963, what does that look like? It's messy in this account, but I'll show you anyway. So we're gonna go down, find 963. And I should have just went to reports. Okay, and again, I'm just focusing on that one example, 512.b, hose carried. So I care about hose. I care about just 2.5, in this case, all apparatus, and we'll sort it by equipment ID. We can go by serial number, equipment type, or compartment. And that equipment type, Chaz, is that field you were talking about. We'll do that. All right, so I have that one section of hose. It's gonna show up here. So Chaz, if you're doing it here in the equipment type, perfectly acceptable. If you put it here in the size, that's good too. And the reason I say that is this. I'm gonna do a Excel download. Remember, they want to know how much length of hose you have per apparatus for supply and for attack. So we've got this. I did the full Excel, but then I can do a sum. Say I had 10 sections of hose on this truck, add it all up. Now you can probably do it in your head, but again, if ISO comes, you've got that documentation. They can just thumb through it, do their math, and boom, they're done. Make sense? Any questions? Well, you know what, I can't help myself. I'm gonna take some questions. Any questions on this part? And again, just one part of the ISO PPC is your hose carried. Okay, hopefully audio and video still going good. And that PDF did load, so now we have 4 handouts there, guys, so feel free to take that handout and take a look at it. Okay, so the next one that we talked about is the pumper service test program. That's going to be report 1699. In our system, and I'm hoping I have some, in our system, we're gonna do all apparatus. Actually, we're gonna do just this, because not all equipment has, or not all apparatus requires a pump test. We're gonna just do engines. Okay, I'm gonna call this engines. So keep in mind, you can group these for future use. Question I always get, is that group for everybody? No, this is your group. So only you have this group on your dropdown. It's tied to the user, all right? Now, I don't want all maintenance types for ISO. They wanna know, did I test all of my pumps within the past year? Now, you do get credit, less credit, if it's been a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year interval. If it's been more than 5 years since you've done a pump test, you get 0 points. Of course, there's nothing there. So that's okay, for the engines anyway, but it will show you when that was done. So if ISO came to my demo department, I get zilch. Now again, I could go back out to and do a better range of up to 5 years. So we'll do that. And now they can determine, all right, have we tested our pumps during the past 5 years? Okay, yeah, back in 2017, engine 1 got tested. And then engine 3 got tested in 16 and 17. So that's 2 years ago. And say those were my only 2 engines, I would get 75 points. But see how fast you can find out for ISO on some of these questions and the points that they're going to be awarding you. Hose testing, same thing, except it's a different report. This is section 512.c in the ISO document. Again, I'm carrying, in this example, we're talking hose. We'll go all equipment subcategories. Again, my NFPA annual test is what matters here. That's your hose testing. Again, you get points for this. So within the past year, how does this look? Not so good. I'm not going to get the maximum 50 points. However, if I go back and we'll do the 5-year range, because that's, well, you don't get credit for 5, but at least you can see when it was done. Okay, I'm getting 0 for that, but maybe if I go look at a different category, again, demo accounts are always fun. All right, so the good news is, back on the deck here, this is what a real account would look like. Is right here. Let's close that out so you can see it, make this smaller. Okay, that's how the report will look, and it will show you your sections of hose, and it can be cross-checked to that other list, that other report we ran, piece by piece, whether it's been tested, and then ISO can say, oh, all your hose, 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 has been tested within the last year, max points. If you have some sections that have not been tested, but a couple years ago, then you just get a few less points. And they'd look at the average interval between the 3 most recent tests. Okay, but those are the reports that you want to look at. And if there's probably one thing I want you to, if there's only one thing to take away from all of this, is the key in getting good stuff out is how you get the good stuff in. 1, how have you organized your equipment in this case, okay? And how are you documenting your annual tests, your regular maintenance, and so forth, even above and beyond ISO. But if you're doing it right, these reports that I've been mentioning will be invaluable to you when ISO comes to audit. Okay, questions so far? So far, so good. Okay, the other and last thing I want to show you when it comes to those 2 elements is right here under safety analytics. Now, question you'll ask, because most of you will probably have just these 2 gauges, organization and wellness and behavior. That's okay. This is an enhanced package of our system, but what I wanted to show you is under apparatus, you can see all of 8 of my apparatus, 8 of my 10 apparatus that have to be NFPA compliant, and we'll also talk ISO here. This just means they probably have not been checked. As a demo account, they don't get checked as much as they should. However, it will also let you know that it's out of compliance if it has not had its annual NFPA pump test. And so if I went to engine 51, let's go to engine 1. Quick link takes me there. It shows me my history. And you can see there has been no NFPA annual test in 2019. That's why it's not compliant, nor in 2018 and 2017 There it is. All right, this is a quick way to analyze that. And the other element here is your equipment. This just shows not whether it's been checked or not, but whether it's had its annual test. And so you can see I've got some SCBA cylinders and a hose section that has not had its annual test. Once you do it, it goes green and this gauge starts moving towards the green. So you could, in theory, one, show them this gauge and then run those reports to prove to them that, yeah, this gauge isn't lying. Again, for equipment. All right, next up is deployment analysis. So in deployment analysis, the report there is 1722 or 1641. So with that, okay, to be able to ascertain and get maximum points for deployment, this is one of the ways, and often volunteer departments and other departments with especially geographically spread out will get more points this way than doing it by the kind of older traditional analysis where they measure it by distance, you know, first due engine company within 1.5 road miles throughout the jurisdiction. So we'll go here. And better yet, we're going to go into an account that has some meaningful data. Stand by, everybody. I don't want to even play in the demo for that. It won't be as worthwhile for you. Okay, and in this account, I've got permission from Lieutenant Moore out at Orange County, Florida, 42 Station Department to share some of their best practices. And so here, depending on your first arriving compliance time or if you're following NFPA, we're just going to say first due has to be there in 5 minutes. Subsequent units need to be there within 8. Code 3 only. All zones, remember geography is going to matter here. Incident types, I'm just going to pick structure fires, and they run a lot of traffic, so we're not going to go and run it for the whole year. And we're going to do all stations. All right, and so this is an example of, you know, the times coming in, whether they were compliant for each unit. And again, there's a lot of bleeding red here, but again, they probably have different compliance times than I'm putting in. Okay, but this will allow you, this is one report along with 1722 that will help you with the 560 element of the ISO, which is deployment analysis. This one also allows you to do your own analysis and crunch your own numbers. And these are the structure fires for August. And you've got the different times. Now it's not calculating it all for you except for travel and 1710 time. And the 1710 time, when you're not sure where data is being pulled from or what the output actually means, in most cases down in our footer, it's going to explain to you what, in this case, the 1710 time is the total of turnout time and travel time. So it adds the turnout times with the travel time, and that's your 1710 time. Incident type, unit, and station. And it does have each unit on the scene. You can see incident number 77309, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 different units went to that incident. So unlike 1641, which shows you just the first 4, this will capture all the units that responded to any given incident based on the parameters that you selected. All right, next up is one of my favorites. I'm going to show you a spreadsheet here for training. Time is looking good. And I want to show you this because this is one of your handouts. And we're just going to focus on these first 10 rows. These are the standards, okay? I basically took language from ISO, put it in the description. I added a new one that I was missing before, frankly, because I hadn't studied the document well. 1023.b is fire inspector continuing education. That is another standard that can be added here. And then you see the description on how many hours you need per year. The challenge here, and the reason this is so important, is the following. In the training module, what I typically teach is this. You've got the big branches of the tree. If training is the tree itself, all right, these are the biggest branches, of which there are relatively few. As a demo account, it's not as clean as I might like it to be. Training code categories. Now, I've seen departments use both of these as the same. That's perfectly fine. Some get a little more descriptive, a little more detailed. That's also fine, and that's traditionally how I've taught it. Now, I struggle with this, putting ISO in here. You can, all right, but using standards gives you a ton more flexibility. Training codes are the smaller branches, and they are the what. What did you train on, all right? And they're just general enough to capture the topic at hand. And then, of course, you guys know you can select one or more of these for any given class and assign hours for each of these training codes, and even refine it on a per person. So if someone has to leave early, stays late, you can update their hours to reflect true participation for any of these given training codes. So big branch, medium branch, small branches, and then to me, the classes themselves, those are the leaves on the tree, but the flowers and the fruit, that's the standards. Okay, because standards allow you to apply as many of these as are pertinent to the class to any given class. So you don't have to finagle. And the example I always like to explain is this. If I'm out teaching, I'm an existing driver operator, I'm teaching a new driver operator, whether it's drive time, pump operations, cab, cab tilt inspections, and under the hood inspections, okay, I'm going to get credit as an existing DO. That's great. But my new driver operator is also going to get credit. How in the world do I document that with training codes? You could do it, okay? So if we were to add a class real fast, okay, we'll just do it from scratch because I want to walk you through this. So we'll pick our category. Station, just a tip, this is not where you did the training necessarily. This is the station for the logbook that it's going to populate in. Instructors, real quick. Dave's going to be teaching us today. Okay, so getting credit here, if I do training codes, okay, that's great. If I had one called ISO, ISO existing, ISO new, I could put both of those in, but then I have to zero out one of those hours for me in the new category. So this is a smart way to do it. We're going to do a type. Again, I'm just picking some here as an example. Let's say we did these two. All right, so imagine these were these. So bear with me here. This is how we want to do it. But if I use training codes, I would essentially have to put in, so say we did 2 hours online and we did 3 hours of drive time, for example. All right. Then when I got to the people page, I would have to zero out my hours for new and make sure the new driver operator got full credit. Just do it this way. Why? I'll show you. What you did is here. The standards that apply are down here. Okay. We're going to put the people that were involved. And so we're going to add agency personnel. Dave is the existing. And I am the new. Be smarter than me and use your search windows. Okay, all I have to do is fill for everybody and we're good to go. We were out there together for 5 hours. Okay, I don't have to go in and tweak this because he's new, change it to 0, make this 5. That's a pain, okay? I want to do that, okay? So now I'm going to lock this class. And again, this is going to be a very simple example. Oh, I made it today. Oops, hang on. Okay, so now we're going to review it. I'm going to go ahead as if I were the instructor and be able to review it. You might have a question, how come I don't have this checkbox? If you have full privileges to the training module and have the permission to review classes, that checkbox will be here. If you only can complete, that checkbox won't be here. Class is done. Now I go to this report. Okay. 1681, watch how this works. ISO comes to town for the year. I want just my existing driver operators. So that's going to be Dave. Whoops, not, we'll put 2 just in case there. Vern and Tim and Tommy. Existing DO. I've grouped them now. The standard that applies to them is this one. I'm going to create my report and you can see just Dave has got training in this year and he has a total of 5 hours. Of any class that had this standard applied to it. So pairing the correct group of personnel that standard applies to, existing DOs, with the correct standard gives you the total hours here on a per person basis. Yes, you will have to add it up and then divide it by what ISO requires. And what do they require? 12 hours per year. But you know, if you run through this list of all your existing DOs and this number is equal to or greater than 12, you just scored the maximum points for that for existing driver operators. Okay, now you'll notice that I'm not in there. Why? Because we're going to do a different report for new driver operators. So Steve and Caesar, Lisa, and then myself. Our new DOs. This standard doesn't apply to new DOs, just this standard, same class, watch. Okay, type 1 engine code, responder safety, those were the codes, date completed. Now when I run it for new, it's gonna be the same results for me, but for the different standard. Whoops, what did I do? It was, oh, hold on. Operator error, stand by. I did not clear. Trying to go fast, this is what happens. So I'm just gonna pick me. Remember selection is new DO, that's fine. Pretend that says new DO, okay? And I'm a new DO, that standard applies to me. That's what I wanted to show you. I went too fast. Yes, thanks, Jazz. I didn't put myself in and I didn't clear out the old people, but that's just me going faster in an attempt to get this done. So again, that's how, and the reason I like to mention these standards is that the product owner, Bob Burton, who we lost last year to cancer, he was a Yakima fire training captain, excuse me, for 30 years. And he was also the person who hired me and was my boss for many years during ER. I remember when he was the product owner of this, how he explained this to me and the intent here for using standards. He's a smart guy. Okay, last one, and we're like smoking it on time. This is great. Last one is events. All right, this is your community risk. Again, it's 5.5% of your PPC. It's a bonus, okay? But what I want to show you is how you build it. okay? One of the elements, and again, we're going to do at least one or two more. Yes, NFPA standards should go into right here. This is in that handout I gave you, Chaz. The question, should NFPA standards go into standards as well? I personally think so, because then you can capture, remember that driver training we just did for that counted for ISO counts also for NFPA 1002. Absolutely, that's the beauty of standards. Great point. Okay, so here in events, one example is 1032 Bravo.1 fire safeties in school. Each school, ISO, must conduct one fire exit drill in accordance with the general criteria of NFPA 101, okay, or the ICC, International Fire Code, each month that the campus is in session, all right? So in the settings, I built fire drills, and then in my type, I built, and I like it ordered like this because I'm OCD, fire drill dash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 based on age. So it sorts not alphabetically, but numerically. And then how this works is, I don't have any upcoming drills, but we're going to create a quick drill. So we've got a drill scheduled, and we're going to call this Desert Sky Middle School, August 2019 fire drill. Category, got to pick that, fire drills. Type, we're in a middle school. Start date, we'll do it yesterday, we're documenting it today. Started at 8 a.m., ended same day, and we were out of there by 9. Location you can type in, not critical, but you can type it in. You've already put it in the description, okay? If you add personnel, set the default hours to the length of the event, add personnel, Dave went, and Mike went, and Tommy on the engine. Add 3 personnel, hours are documented. Non-attending personnel, children, how many? Let's say there were 450, adults 20, and some senior volunteers. Okay, we're going to create the event. We're going to lock the event. And now we're going to run a report. ISO wants to know how many fire drills have you done in your schools this year? Not a problem. Fire drills. We're going to pick multiple. All right, because we want to get, they care about pre-K, elementary, middle, and high. Okay, we can call that, I didn't call it something I should have, ISO, for example, fire drill report, or 1032.B.1 report. And there's my fire drills. And at a glance, you can kind of tell if they're in school for 9 months. Now, granted, if you've got, say, many of you have dozens of probably schools in your jurisdiction, but you can see at a glance if I've got at least 9 per school here, I'm looking pretty good. And I've got a tally of the civilian contacts as well as a bonus. We did it. 8:53, my time anyway, 7 minutes to the hour, and I'm ready for some questions. So keep in mind, I think based on what we covered today, if you all found it valuable, I'd like to come back again in a month or so and go through another part of ISO other than the handful of sections I went through today, and go through some more sections where you can grab the data for them easily. So if you guys are game for that, stay tuned and we'll maybe add that in during the fall 20 for 2020 sessions we're gonna be doing. So before y'all take off, let me see if I've got any questions. Chief McGarvey out in PA, I think I've answered all your questions. So Todd in Alaska, will ISO ever follow NFPA requirements? They do in some areas, they cite NFPA 101 in some of their references, but then they also cite some other standards as well. The other one from Todd, I like the idea of the fire department helping with fire drill. How can we make that a requirement of the school district? That's a local thing that you got to work through. Maryville's good from Andrew. Thanks for everything. My pleasure, Andrew. I hope today was valuable. Another from Michael Sorowski out in Loveland, Colorado. Do you think ISO will ever collaborate with CPSI, CPSE, and accreditation? Good question. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it seems like a lot of what ISO does goes hand in hand. One thing I do know, there are far, far more departments that have been audited by ISO and have an PPC classification versus the about 260 worldwide departments that are accredited. So I would think that the two ought to get together, but that's just Tom's opinion. Any other questions on ISO, any other pain points or anything about the system that you want me to hit? Vaskin, I hope I pronounced that Vaskin or Vaskin. You're welcome, my pleasure. All right, I'm going to stick around. We got about 4 more minutes to the top of the hour. If you guys have any questions, definitely reach out. If you got to get back to work, get back to your day. Thank you very much for participating today. We're going to do it again. Should be next week, as a matter of fact. We should be doing another one. Just be on the lookout for the registration links and emails that come your way. Remember, you can also see what's coming up here. You want to just take a quick look, both on the login page. Like today, you can register, and then on our main marketing site, which is just emergencyreporting.com. If you navigate over here, whoops, not there. Resources, webinars, educational webinars. So we're going to skip a week. September 12th, we're going to do an encore of PPE management. And then right behind that is going to be annual reports that wow. And if you've got a topic you want to cover, shoot me an email, tom@emergencyreporting.com. And with that, we'll wrap it up. And to Ed, Michael, and Sean, thank you for the kind words, and you're all very, very welcome.